right, grace and peace. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of You're Doing It Wrong. My name is Brandon. Last month, had the honor and the privilege of chopping it up with my guy Pat Jr. His album came out November 6th. If I'm remembering correctly, I thought I knew. On all streaming platforms, don't just stream it. Go ahead and buy and support good brother, man. Just quality music. Not just because I know him, but I've heard it, listened to it. Just a great album. Very relatable, very personable, very introspective. Just a really great body of work, and I know Pat put a lot of time and effort into that. So please, if you haven't had a chance, go listen to the episode and more importantly, go buy Pat's album. You definitely won't be disappointed. But I am glad to be joined this month by some more brothers who I'm just grateful just to have the honor and the privilege of knowing. My brothers Sandy and Nate. These guys, when I come up with these topics, I'm always thinking, what are people, knowing them, I guess, would be the first thing, and knowing what they like, what are their interests, and trying to center a conversation around that. And these guys, I know them just for taking really good care of their bodies, something that I admire so much because I'm terrible at that, especially for Sandy. I think we have just a really good connection because my father, he runs. He's just an athlete himself. I wish that would have just got passed down to me, but he just runs and runs and runs. After like a certain age, it's called masters running, and so he just loves it. He just recently, I want to say, retired maybe a couple years ago, but he has a couple, I want to say world, if not U.S. records, and I believe either the 800 or the mile. Just very, very good in his age group, I should say. But just if you looked at him, you couldn't tell that he is as old as he is. But shout out to him, and just the discipline that it takes just to get up and train and work out. I wish that was something that was passed down to me. But Sandy is another one who just runs. I think just competed in the 5K, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I was only like 3.2 miles or something to that effect.
3.1.
3.1. Yeah, it's 3.1 too many for me. But just having that mutual understanding of someone who just loves running. And just having a respect and admiration for that, and just what discipline it takes. And then my brother Nate, like, he's got on green because it's fitting, because he looks like the Hulk, man. Like, if you were to shake this brother's hand, and I'm not a little dude, but sometimes I gotta shake it a little firmer because I ain't soft. But this guy is just arms, shirt too small, just arms busting out and everything. But I believe, if I'm correct, went to NC State and was the shot putter.
Discus.
I was close.
Good. Yeah.
You did shot put, right?
I did. I was better. Yeah, I was better at discus. Yeah, but I did. You were right though. So you're right.
NC State did the discus. So just someone just takes really good care of his
and
body.
He's All-American.
Oh, please, let's not forget that.
Yeah, it's all right.
Shout out.
Yeah. So
just two just gifted people who love taking care of their body and understand the importance of it. And even right now, on the side. And I think you want to do it full-time, personal training.
Yeah.
Because you were just telling me, I want to put all your business out there, that you were just doing the fast. Yeah. And that you're like, hey, I know there's all these diets and fasts that are going on, and I don't want to just be, recommending things to people that I haven't tried myself.
Right.
And so it's just really dope just to see you actually taking it very, very seriously and saying, hey, if I'm going to recommend something, I'm going to try it myself. But how are you gentlemen doing today? And again, once again, thank you for coming through on this rainy Tuesday, man. Thank you guys so much. How are y'all?
No problem, man. I'm doing good. Just chilling, relaxing, ready to talk about wellness.
I think that's a good way to put it, wellness, because usually when we say health, we kind of like compartmentalize it to one thing or another, but we want to talk about wellness in its entirety. But how are you doing, Sandy?
I'm doing great. I'd like to know from you, before we even jump in, what number white guy am I on the podcast?
You're number one.
Not the first one. There's no way.
Yeah.
For real?
Yeah.
Wow.
You're not the first white person, but you're the first white guy. Lizzie was the first white person.
Okay, gotcha.
There you go.
Thank you for clarification.
Yeah. But yes, I want to have a diverse guest at the podcast.
As
and
you can see,
and
diversity.
You're real,
I'm only kidding. I had to bless these guys Brandon, tell the people what you said when I came in. Right now, this is it's pretty cold out.
Yeah, it's a cold day.
It's like the first truly cold day of like the fall. It had of course with winter right on the corner. Temperatures in the 40s dropping.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Some mixed
I don't mind shit. I think I was just about to say something to that effect now that you brought it up. Now I hate doing stereotypes because especially as black people we hate being a stereotype. But that's the funny thing about comedy, and especially like if you've got listening to like a lot of the new comedy specials like with Dave Chappelle, where they're like coming really against this cancel culture and all this stuff where a lot of times people just can't take a joke. And while we understand there's a lot of sensitivity going on, but sometimes you gotta let a joke go. And usually, it's tough, especially if you're like, a white guy. When I listen to this guy, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Brilliant Idiots, Charlemagne and Andrew Schultz. So this guy Andrew Schultz, he's really like popping when it comes to comedy, but he's someone who definitely can get misconstrued, but he has just really, really good jokes, and it's my kind of sense of humor. But I definitely judged Shandy when she walked in because it's pretty cold, and I've been out today, and I bundled up, and I had my daughter Autumn with me, and we had like on a hoodie or something like that. And so it's like it's cold, but it's not like 2 jackets cold. So when Shandy came in here, he had on this like fleece jacket with another jacket on it, and I was like, that's usually white people got on shorts and sandals on, even when it's raining. Right. And so I was like, what's going on here? That this brother is bundled up, because usually white people don't bundle up. So that was just really
Vision
really
Church
weird.
Has started to really take grab of my wardrobe. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah. So Sandy is one of the handful of white people who come to a predominantly black church, and so we can definitely see how those things are rubbing off on Sandy where he's bundling up, but nah, yeah, that was funny.
So all that to say, it's great to be on here. I didn't even mean to take it away right off the bat.
No, it's fine.
I just had to go there.
I appreciate
but God,
it.
yes, excited. I'm honored to be on here. This will be my second time. First time on You Doing It Wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know what your first iteration of the podcast was called.
We was going through the book. It was I Saw the Lord. So we're going through each chapter of the book.
Second time. Wow. So I will say, Brennan, kudos to your setup. This was not the setup first time around. So you've really come up in the podcast world, if I can say so myself.
I was telling them when I walked in, I was like, man, this is where the magic happens, man. Because when you walk in. I mean, when you walk in and set up, and then when I'm watching it, I'm like, man, he got this junk all the way nice, man. I like
but the funny thing is, it's like literally in my living room, and we can just see the couch and my daughter in her room just like yelling and screaming. So.
Has Pastor Jerome been on yet?
I want to get him.
There we go.
I want to get him.
But I mean, and then having Pat Jr. I mean, that's a big one, right? Like that's probably got some listens.
I would hope so.
Do you track the listens?
I don't want to be disappointed, so no.
Okay.
No.
Talk
but no, I think we even had that conversation when we were talking about this whole like health thing. But we'll get to that. But to answer your question, I haven't had Pastor Jerome. I do want to have him on. I remember the last time you were here, you called him out. So hopefully,
if he's listening,
come back. If he's listening,
that's why you need to edit that. My one question for you, then this is all.
No, you're fine.
If you could have one person on, like anybody, to come to your house to be on the podcast, who would you have?
So the thing is, I'm running out of people from Vision Church.
No, I'm saying like
in general,
anyone,
period.
No, I got you.
Yeah.
And the reason that I brought that up is I don't want to have people who share my worldview on this podcast.
Totally.
But the fact that these past episodes is just I'm working with what I can. But I want to have someone who thinks completely different from me. So it doesn't have to be anyone famous, but I want to have someone who's actually maybe struggling, someone who thinks completely counter to me, someone who will stretch me, who will have me. Because that was the point of this, where You're Doing It Wrong was just kind of self-reflection on my own life. That just in all aspects of my life, that just whether it's just being a husband, being a father, being a friend, going to church, that I haven't mastered anything, and just trying to be real with myself, because most people aren't real with themselves. Most people think, they stuff smells so good and it don't stink, but I realize it does stink, and I'm not trying to, just be self-deprecating, but do it in a sense where I understand, hey, I need to grow and mature, and just having real conversations, because a lot, especially at church, and that's why I love Pat's album so much, because he has this verse where he says, and I apologize, Pat, that I'm butchering it, but he said something to the fact that, you know, wearing a mask is my skill or my talent, that I've become so proficient at wearing a mask in front of people. And it's like, dang, that's so real.
Yeah,
especially
it's a lot
within
of people's
church.
testimony, man.
We just go and we wear masks, and we were just talking about it earlier. You go to church, hey, how you doing? How's everything? Everything is good.
We're blessed.
You know, exactly. And all in the real time, just
struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know. So the conversations I want to have are with people who don't think anything like me. I love that. I not throwing any shots at anybody, but I don't really like, especially when Christians just talking to Christians. You know, I want to have conversations where I'm talking with someone who can challenge my thought and challenge that. So if anybody's out there and listening who does not share a biblical worldview and just want to have a civil conversation, because like I said, a lot of the people who may be atheists or agnostics or have different other various faiths are very respectable and honorable people, but a lot of times they get disrupted. There's just some heathens out there, you know, but we can find, you know, some common ground of respectability and just have a conversation. So anyone, that's what I would love to have, and continue to have people and just actually walk with them, you know, as they, you know, go through this journey. I always say this, like, when there's this verse in Genesis where it talks about, like, I want to say it's Jacob, where it's like he wrestles with God.
Yep.
I love that, because I feel like that's our journey, just a constant wrestle, that it's never going to be like, I've arrived. I'm always wrestling with God, you know, always wrestling with him.
If I can take analogy one farther, when they wrestled, he jacked up his hip as a reminder constantly that he had wrestled with God for the rest of his life. So it's like, man, he knew that his life intersected God's by the fact that he had to walk with a limp from then on.
No, that's real. And I don't think most people picture the Christian walk as that of wrestling. Like, I get upset at
the Christian limp.
Yeah, the Christian man. Wait a minute.
All right, y'all, that's
Sweet
my
victory.
new podcast, The Christian Limp. Y'all go ahead and check me out on my spot.
But I appreciate that. I appreciate you asking me that, because that's ultimately what I want to cultivate and foster. And I think it does fall into that understanding of wellness, because especially as Christians, we're so geared of, like, I gotta save your soul, and it's like we're so focused on that we ignore a person's entire person of who they are, that they just become, you know, a statistic. Right. Or even like, because I came out of Liberty University, and not to throw any shots at them, but it's very like numbers, and not just dumb, but a lot of churches are very numbers oriented. How many people can I get to fill the seats? But it's like, that's not the true testament of a healthy church.
Right.
You know, how are your people growing and maturing? That's the true measure of a healthy church. But before we get there, I definitely wanted to start, because like I said, the thing that I noticed about you guys is just how you take care of yourselves physically. And even though it's I see that, but I think it even goes to further this understanding of wellness, because there's a principle of discipline. And that principle of discipline should pervade all of our lives.
Right.
And I may be disciplined where it may, and I don't even want to say that because I don't think I am, but most people would look at me and say, hey, you're disciplined in your studies, you get all these degrees, you're disciplined in reading, this, that, and the third. But it's like, that doesn't always translate into other areas of life. But I've noticed in you guys that, I said this morning, Sandy comes in and is like, hey, I went for a run this morning and it's raining. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you just sleep in? But he's like, yeah, I got to get up and do my run.
And you know, it wasn't on the treadmill either, was it?
Yeah, no, he was outside. And you probably enjoyed it too.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I enjoyed the feeling. I mean, I still ran an hour in the cold.
Wait, you ran an hour?
Yeah. Y'all come join me on the Christian Limp. We'll be talking about.
Yeah, that's what happened to me.
Talking about how I was limping. Right? Yeah.
No, but I'm trying to think what angle. I mean, here's reality. I love the feeling of fitness, and I think I have to. That feeling, which has driven me to be a competitive runner and allowed me to go to college and run, and then kind of run semi-professionally, has brought about a lot of great things. And I think the Lord has used that. By the same token, it's like anything that is good that we try to make a God thing, it fails to hold the weight that we want it to by thinking more of it, or if I can achieve some status that's gonna, and also too, so that fails on one end, but then two, if it is taken away by injury or and being able to be, are you okay without it, know?
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, there have been seasons in my life that have been defined where this has been taken away, and the Lord has, I've wrestled with Him on this, and still trying to figure out what it means to have a healthy relationship with this idea of fitness as it pertains to overall wellness, as it pertains to godliness. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, submitting it to Him.
Yeah.
But how did you? Because I think the hardest part is just starting.
Right.
How did you become like so disciplined? Is it just because you just love? Like,
I
what
was
was that always
driven.
love?
I mean, at my earliest ages, I remember in 4th grade, man, like my parents would tell me like they'd put a limit on how much I could run in a given week.
Oh,
Were they runners?
No, my dad played baseball. I played baseball in college. In fact, my mom was a cheerleader in high school, and that's the extent. So, like,
how did you get into running?
There was some I liked the one. I had some early success in a thing called First in Fitness, which was like an elementary school competition, countywide.
Yeah.
But then I really enjoyed this idea of pushing my body, that I kind of could be in control of that. And then as I did that, I realized there was success as I was able to perform. So now looking back on all this through the lens of even Enneagram, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with Enneagram. It's kind of a personality typology that enables you to see kind of why you do the things you do from a natural point of view.
That's cool.
When you're in a healthy place and an unhealthy place. There's redemption in knowing that, and also knowing that's not your final stay. But it's helpful to know, like, kind of like for the core why you have inclinations. But I'm Enneagram 3, which means appearance and success are high, and I value those tremendously. Running gave me the appearance that I wanted, and it, as I put the time and effort in, performance came with it. So it was kind of like this beautiful marriage of, like, I was known by it. It was an incredible identity. I had a lot of control over it, and because I was driven, just naturally, it was something that I could, like, put time into. So from an early age, it wasn't like it felt like that. That's just, how the Lord gives us natural, like, I'd say common graces of things, whether it's, it's certain just kind of natural giftings that we're given. Kind of apart from the Spirit, I think physical discipline has always been one of mine.
That's awesome.
What about you, Nate?
I hate not being able to understand anything or not being able to do anything. I come from a place when I was really young. I was like I'm the youngest cousin out of a bunch of older cousin guys. Yeah. So, like, I had glasses, called me 4 eyes, like, picked on me, and from there I was just like, I'm never going to not be one of the best out of all of y'all. So, like, whenever I lose, I get frustrated and I push my butt off to try to get better. And it just happened in everything. Like, I remember, like, playing video games, getting super frustrated and breaking the controller in half, or like starting with a math problem, like when I was in like elementary school, like getting really mad and just like ripping the book up because I was so frustrated I couldn't get I was really like frustrated and angry when I couldn't get stuff done. So from there I understood, like, okay, stop getting so mad because all you're doing is breaking stuff. Just get better. So that kind of drove me to always want to get better at stuff. And then it turned into something physical when I started getting big. Like, I started getting bigger. I was always like the big kid. And then when I started getting stronger, it's like, oh crap, if I keep working on this, then I'm just going to keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Nobody's going to be able to stop me. And then I'm going to go from the people person's getting picked on because 4 eyes to the person that everybody wants to run away from because I'm bigger than all of you. So it's just like that. Like, I was super frustrated when I didn't understand anything or when I couldn't do anything. Like, that devastated me to the point where I would try as hard as I could to get better. And that's where it came from. It just manifested itself physically because I just became pretty huge, like just because of genetics, and then just kept on taking me forward. Yeah.
And because I have the exact reverse story of y'all. So, and which is weird because, like I said earlier, my father, he was very athletic. I remember he told me he had actually a trial with the Mets. He was very good. He did a lot of sports, basketball, baseball. He did track. He swam. He's just very athletically gifted. And when I was younger, so was I. And it's just weird because growing up where I grew up, just playing basketball was just like a really huge thing. So I played basketball like all my life. Always been pretty tall. Always was skinny too. But because I was always active, I kind of took that for granted. And then even like I remember even in high school we did like the vertical jump test, and my vert was like like 37 or something like that. So it's just like always like, ooh, I had that.
I'm a beast.
But then like you don't realize, bro, that was the prime of my life. And it's like if you don't hone into that, it's like it goes away. And
yeah, man.
I remember one time my father, like I was playing basketball at a church league, and he'd be the only parent there, so that's already like just awkward there. But he was like telling me to stretch or something like that. And I was like, yo, back away. I'm not stretching. And when you're young, you really don't have to stretch.
Right.
But he's just trying to discipline me just to do that. And it's like now 30 years old, where it's like, yo, I can't go and not stretch. Like I have to do that, because I was always active. Even in like college, I was active. We'll go to the gym and just taking so many things for granted. And just walking everywhere, not necessarily having a car. Like, you don't realize how technology just makes you so lazy. You know, where I can just drive everywhere. And then I got a job where I'm just sitting at a desk. And then even like, I would go to college and I would just like eat hamburgers every day. And, you know, after a certain time when you're not walking off those calories, it just like sits there on you.
Right.
And so it's just like I stayed at like 100. I wish I could show you guys pictures. I stayed at like, it was a stick. Stayed at like 170 for the longest. And like right now I'm like, and I'm being generous, maybe 236. Just being generous. And it's like, I don't want to be that huge, because I remember like just because I would even like look at NBA players and be like, oh, I want to be at least like 205. I think like D Wade was like 215 or something like that.
Oh man,
and it's just like just having wanted to be like an ideal size, because I was always so skinny. But now it's just like, oh my goodness, and like wanting to, like you said, have that look, wanting to do that, but matching it with being disciplined. So what would your advice be to someone to just like how to cultivate this discipline that you guys have? Like, what would be that advice that y'all would give?
You got this one, man? First.
I mean,
I just like running, man. I get up and I run, and I just run some more, and then it feels so good.
Whether it be diet, well, I would relate to diet. Sustainability and something that you can do over the long haul is important.
Yeah.
Which means that, you saying I'm going to go crush running for like a month leading up to a race might be helpful, but I think like having just something that you can always, something that's like you can see yourself doing this exercise, or
matter what.
this kind of formula or this routine on a long haul is important. It's kind of like it's like a diet, right? Like you can rock it and lose a bunch of weight, but if you don't have something sustainable when that diet ends, you're gonna balloon right back to where you were. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that on one side you have to have something sustainable, right? So that like in terms of intensity, life, and like match that up with like lifestyle, like what you can actually get to, whether it be a gym or a group or whatever, group fitness.
Yeah.
And I think that leads me to my second point. If you don't have a natural inclination that you're gonna do it regardless, like quite frankly for me, it's like apart from like a lightning storm or something that's going to be detrimental to my health, I'm going to run. Like it's not even in question. And quite frankly, I wish that was the case with some of them with like the same way I view like studying the Bible. I'm going to do it regardless. Right. It's not optional.
Yeah. Oh man,
but with running, it's not. You know what I mean? Like it's
good.
not. Like I'm just going to get it in. I know how much I have to get every day, and like when I wake up in the morning, right before I go to bed, I know like I'm getting up at this time. I got this routine, and I'm going to do it. It's not even. It's just like that. It's just in secondhand. So, if you don't have that kind of drive, which I'm not, I feel there's a lot of people who are like me, so I don't feel, you need to have a group, right? And I think that group fitness or having some sort of accountability is important. Yeah. Just because they're like, with anything, our bodies desire homeostasis, right? Like they don't want us to actually get up and get off the sofa and do something. Mm-hmm. They want to sit like so to know that there's accountability to fight like that. I don't feel like doing this. It's huge. Even if you know someone's freaking waiting on me, I have to meet. I just so I don't disappoint them, or they got up early. I can't not meet them. Yeah. So that group, whether it be one other person in a personal training, or whatever, or like a group fitness kind of situation, I think those are really helpful for just building habits, right? And they say it like takes like 6 months or something to build, for a behavior to become routine, or for a behavior to become a habit, or something, something like that. So question would be, what are you putting in place to help, turn a behavior into a habit? And I think having people that hold you accountable and you're meeting and growing and moving towards a goal with is important.
Yeah.
Oh man, so you spoke towards sustainability, man. That's my thing. Like my saying I always say when I start training people is start low, go slow. So you start at something that you know you can do easily, like knock it out. And if you don't know if you can do it easily, then you experiment. You figure it out. Like, oh crap, this is too much. Let me not do this anymore. And then you start really low, and then you just gradually add more on. So if it's like, man, I'm gonna walk on a treadmill at 2. And I'm not going to give any incline. I'm going to do that for 30 minutes every day. Cool. Eventually, you're going to be like, this is boring.
Right.
I have to go a little bit faster. All right, cool. I'll go a little bit faster today. Nice and comfortable. Eventually, if you keep going a little bit faster, you'll eventually get to like 5. And you'll get to like 6. And then 6 is nice and fast. You're like, oh, crap. Let me put the incline up. I'm going to go even faster. I'm getting tired of running. Let me go do some bicep curls. Right. Or something. You know, like you're starting really low. It's really comfortable. And then you just constantly get better and better. And that's the way your body works anyway. Like you build up a habit, and then as your habit is like solidified, then you gradually get better and better. And that's the first thing. And then what you were saying, if there's a group of people that you're accountable for, then you're going to go do it. Like accountability is huge. Whether you're going with a group of people or if you just say like, yo, hey man, I'm really going to, somebody that you trust and that you love and that loves you, hey, I'm going to work out. And I'm going to really work on my health, and I need you to just hold me accountable. Or even if you say I'm going to do it, chances are next time you meet up with them, they'll be like, hey, how's that going? Like, oh man, I ain't did anything. Like, dang man, you said you were going to do it. Yeah, well, I didn't. Like, yeah, I care about you. You should do that. Oh, all right. And then that accountability is there.
Right.
Period.
And then honestly too, let's be honest, like, how much like I'll be honest with you, there are times when running is just miserable. That's my thing. I run, right?
Yeah.
But like sometimes I enjoy it when it's going on. Sometimes it's painful, not fun. I don't feel great, dehydrated, hot, blah blah.
Yeah.
But every time I finish running, clarity of mind, I feel good.
Oh man.
I feel like I've earned the right to have some ice cream tonight. But you know what I'm saying? Like how good do you feel just about yourself? And I think that like is an intangible that definitely drives me, because that's part of the addiction of wanting is
it's an
like
accomplishment.
Yes,
every time,
every day.
Yo, I killed it. I killed it again. Oh, I ran for 30 minutes. Oh my gosh, I did it again.
Like I overcame this mental block in my mind. Wanted to say you can't do this, and I overcame it, bruh. Like,
yeah, I think that connects to mental health too. Mental wellness.
Okay, go there.
Because you got to be able to you got to be able to actually tell yourself you did a good job. Not everybody's in that point. Like some people might be like, because I know for a while for me, I would get done with my workout and I'd be like, man, all I did was power clean 315 today. I saw a dude over there, he had like 345. I'm not doing that again. Like I gotta get there. And I would beat myself up daily, and that would continue to drive me. But then when I got out of college, it's just like, I'm no longer a thrower. This don't make sense anymore. That's not helping me.
Right.
So you being able to say, or anybody being able to say, yo, I did a really good job, man, I feel so accomplished. That's pushing into mental health, because you need to be able to encourage yourself rather than tear yourself down.
Yeah.
And if you are continuing to encourage yourself, then it's a good thing. That's helping it become a good thing and not a God thing, because if that's what you measure yourself as,
right,
and you know what I'm saying, you're holding on this pedestal, so it gets dangerous.
Yeah,
it gets dangerous, man.
Now, I appreciate that, just because this idea of discipline, it's always constantly on my mind. And the fact, because we were talking earlier, where when we talk about health, we kind of like compartmentalize it. You know, you've got your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, all these healths that we kind of compartmentalize, when I think we should see them as a collective unit. And that if we're failing in one, it's going to affect the other areas.
No doubt, man.
As well. And so I look at you guys and I see how disciplined you are, and something that, man, I heard something that was just really, really convicting. We were just talking about just a simple discipline of like, because in order to get up in the morning and run, you have to get up in the morning. Like I set an alarm for myself, but then I hit snooze. Like you have to discipline yourself not to say, hey, I'm not going to hit snooze, or not even that. Let's even go back. Discipline yourself to go to bed at a decent time.
Right.
To go ahead and do that, so that you get a decent amount of sleep, so that, hey, I can wake up without still feeling groggy. Yeah. So those little small steps of discipline, it's like evident of how you're disciplined in other areas of your life, because we're both all of us are married, and so it's like that takes a great deal of discipline as well. So it's like, I forget what the quote was, but it's like, if you're not disciplined in these little things, how can you be disciplined when it's bigger? And it's super convicting, because it's like, I'm not that disciplined in these things. So if a big test and trial comes, it's like, how am I going to discipline myself not to do that? And that was just really, really crazy. But you've said a couple things, Sandy, that I picked up on. You said, I wish I was this disciplined in like reading or studying, or even like bring up the fact that how, running can just overshadow everything else in your life and becomes like almost this idol. Mm-hmm. And so my question to you guys was like, have you guys experienced like this physical fitness, or just even like how it makes you feel and how it makes you look, even becoming an idol where it like supersedes other areas of your life, and you see other areas maybe struggling because you have this, just view of, physical fitness?
Man, without a doubt, man. I'll start off saying somebody that I know like did this super right, and that's you remember Tremonisha?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, bro! Like whenever she would get done throwing, she'd be like, "To God be the glory," and go sit down and chill. And like that's the mindset that like I wish I had. If I had that, then it wouldn't be any problem for me to just transition from like throwing to go do whatever else I needed to. Because in her head, that was worship. Like I'm worshiping God. Ain't worry about none of this stuff. If I do good, cool. If I don't, I'm gonna glorify Him in everything I do. So I'll start off by that, because it's like if you got that mindset, then you don't have to worry about it overshadowing anything else. What
about you personally?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Man, yeah. Like it's without a doubt. Like after I what is it? I always been like I was so bent up in my own appearance that like somebody's like, "Man, you're getting fat." And I was like, "I am." But it was after my first year of college. I was lifting every day, and I could squat 400 pounds like easy, like it was feathers. But that one statement made me run a mile every day. I wake up in the morning early, run a mile, work out, boom, 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 lost all the weight. Cool. Got back to school. Coach was like, "What are you doing? You're not gonna throw like that. You're skinny. Go eat some pizza." So it's like that kind of my appearance jacked me up. Like I could have been a whole lot better had I not have focused on my appearance. And not only that, like after college, it's hard out here, man. It's like I think it's the name after you get done with college, and that athletic waking up every day thinking about like that was my thing. Like I am a track athlete. I'm good at it too. And that's what I'm good at. That's what I do. After that, it was like, oh crap, so who am I now? Like I'm a track athlete, but I don't compete collegiately anymore. Oh man, so where do I compete at? Oh, I can compete. No, I can't compete anywhere because I'm ineligible to compete. And I'm not good enough to throw with the big leagues, so where do I fit in at? Even within college, it'd be like, I work out every day. I have my obligation to the track team, but then I didn't really think about my career. I was like, yo, I want to do math. Math, cool. And it's like, well, why do you want to do math? Shut up, man. I'm really good at track, so leave me alone. I'm doing math. I'll do the classes. I'm going to pass because I'm smart, and we're good. But it beat me up because I didn't think about my future. I thought about how good I was doing in track. Oh, this is great. But then once the future hit me, it's like, oh crap, I didn't think this through all the way. Now I gotta live with it. So those are different things. Like when you're bent, or you're bent up in something that defines you, sometimes you lose track of all those other things. And unless somebody's there holding you accountable that you care about and you listen to, it doesn't necessarily come to your mind how it needs to. Yeah.
So what about you, Sam?
Oh yeah, I mean, when so much of your life there's a correlation with your physical fitness and discipline and success, whether it be by getting a scholarship, winning a race, getting your name in the newspaper, hitting up on social media. Man, you learn that the merit is it's nice.
Yeah.
So it's easy for that. And then it's so easy. And I've been a believer since like 4th grade. But man, like it's hard not to view God in light of that performance drivenness. And 2, it's like hard not to try to get God to co-sign kind of like what you want in terms of like, I'm going to go after these things. Thanks for giving me the talent. Come alongside.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm injured. Oh, things aren't going well. Lord, let me come running. So I think that's part of it too. Is trying to figure is the self-awareness and the spirit, just the conviction on that stuff, which just for me it took a long time, because for the longest time I saw my efforts success, my efforts success, my efforts merit, my efforts scholarship, my efforts state championships, my effort, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like that becomes a very strong correlation in your mind. Like that's how life works, right? That's how faith.
Right.
That's how faith kind of fits in that mold, right?
Yeah.
So that's how God my relationship. Right? I put in this effort, and He's proud, so He awards.
That's who, boy.
And and so you can hear the gospel, but like when a large part of your life, which running and fitness was, it's hard to break those really strong correlations. And man, I think I'll probably spend a lifetime really battling that, just because during my formative years, I saw how directly tied to what my heart really like at a flesh level yearns for, which is self-recognition, self-promotion, these things that came along with, for me, fitness. By running, by means of running.
Yeah. Right. No, that I'm really glad you guys made those illustrations, especially when you talk about like no longer competing and finding your whole identity in that. And it's like, yo, what do I do now?
Yeah.
I don't have this anymore. And then even with you saying like just connecting it to like just works righteousness.
Right.
Where it's like I put in effort, I get success. Put in effort, I get success, and it's like that runs completely counter to the gospel, because you can't do anything to earn any kind of merit or any success. It's primarily on someone else's effort and merit and not your own. So it's very humbling, where it's like I can't do, because you, like you were saying, I put these mental blocks where I said I couldn't do it, but then I could, and there's a healthy balance of that. But especially when it comes to life, it's like no matter how good you do, you know?
Right. So if I can jump in real quick, in the past year, my favorite documentary. And this probably shows some of my whiteness, was Free Solo. Has anyone seen this by chance?
Of course not.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish.
Okay, good.
Wish I could watch documentaries.
Right? So Free Solo is about a guy by the name of Alex Honnold, who was free soloing is a type of rock climbing by which you don't use harnesses. And on very short rocks, they call it bouldering, which essentially is you don't have a harness, but I mean you're 10 feet off the ground, and they put like mats, like a gymnastics mat. So if you fall, you fall into these things. Free soloing is you're doing epic climbs, and we're talking 100, 200 feet, where if you did fall, like a good chance you're gonna die, right?
Yeah.
And so he free soloed. He's been the only person ever free soloed this very, very challenging 3,000 foot rock face out in the Yosemite called El Capitan, and or El Cap is what they call it for short. Anyhow, I did a documentary on it. It's incredible. It took a little under 4 hours, and he's doing it, and it was incredible. And I left. I mean, just his single hand, or his single mindedness when it came to this. I mean, he was dating some girl. He almost dumped her because she was getting in the way of like his physical feat. That it took so much of his emotional and physical. And he spent years trying to accomplish it. And it won like was it Grammy, Emmy?
I don't know.
What is it? Grammy, I believe, is what it was for like a short documentary.
I think Grammy's music.
Okay, so not Grammy, not Emmy. Was it an Emmy? Is
Academy? I don't know. One of those.
Academy Award. That's what it was. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, there you go. Good job.
I
have no idea.
Not Nate, Brennan. You don't get credit for that.
yeah. I don't want.
But anyhow, there was. So what I took away from that, this really cool film, which was a documentary, so I loved it. Was like, man, this guy was rewarded for the single-mindedness that he placed towards this one physical feat, which I'm sure, if he's honest, wasn't what he. I mean, it was incredible. No one's ever done it. I mean, it was like a physical barrier that no one had. But he was rewarded for this single-handed, single-minded, single-focused, and so much of like, I feel like there's so much affirmation in a worldly sense of like going all in on one thing and seeing like, yes, achieve, go after that, like don't have balance. As long as you're going towards this goal, as long as you're getting close to it, as long as you're trying to, like, we're affirming that at whatever cost, right? Like, it's like, oh man, my marriage is disaster, but man, I got this. Or man, it's like, yo, my private life is dark, but publicly you see me going for this epic goal, so like, awesome.
Yeah.
And at what, so it's kind of like, man, at what, like, that's why faith, I think, is so important in this discussion, and why I think Paul tells Timothy, right, in 1 Timothy 4:8, right, or so is that Timothy wrote? Do we know? Timothy wrote to Timothy, right?
Yeah, correct.
Where he says, "For physical training is of some value, but godliness has value above all things, holding promise not only in this life but the life to come."
Oh man,
bro, like that has been like the knock me up, like, and I've had to add different that verse. This is why the beauty of Scripture, how the different like it hits you one time in this season, and next season you're like, no, I hear it from a different
way.
It's different, right?
Yeah.
All these same Scripture, same Spirit, but like life experience helps drive it home a different way.
Oh man, praise God. Man.
It's real. I just think like the hard part of all this too is coming to an understanding that like it's okay to have goals. It's okay to set and go after, but man, like this is our hearts. Like it's never enough.
Yeah,
it's never good enough.
Yeah,
they'll never hold the weight of what we want it to.
Right, it's got to be submitted to the Father.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like even all that work you put in and everything. That's what makes it perfect. I mean, like when you're doing all of that, I feel like that's what I miss. Like if I was working that whole time and saying, "Hey, it's for you, God. All this that happens this is straight up for you," then I would have had peace no matter what. Like even if I sucked completely, like some of the best competitions I've ever had, I've cried, I've prayed, I've sat there and just listened to like Andy Mineo or something before I threw, and then just said, "Bump it, let's go, God," and I'm like, throw super far, but I don't care because His glory goes to Him either way.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's some of the best competition I've ever had. But looking back on it, it wasn't the reason why it was so good is because it was for His glory, not for mine.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, that's like the thing. You tie that in, and that's just what it's about.
Yeah, and I think once you lose focus of that, because I've heard you mention it too, where it affects your mental health because you like just start to doubt, and it's like, what's going on? All this effort that I put in, I'm not getting the results. And even I remember one time you were talking, I've witnessed it. The times you were like, I just got injury after injury after injury, where it's like you couldn't do what you had loved anymore, and it's just like, God, what are you doing? This is something that I love, I'm passionate about. Why are you allowing these things to happen? And just just messing with just like that, and again talking about it in a complete sense, because now that you're physical, you can't do what you want to do physically. It just messes with you mentally and spiritually and emotionally, and that's something that I've seen. I was telling you guys earlier, just this idea of mental health coming to the forefront and us having more conversations about it, and wanting to not be one of these people of just having a trend, because our pastor, he actually touched on it, especially in the church. I don't think I've ever heard a sermon preached on mental health, and it wasn't this type of thing where it was because the culture is talking about it, I am. And again, once we were off the mics, we were saying how, just from my opinion, I feel like the church is like behind so many things, where it's like the world will start talking about diversity, and then all of a sudden churches, we've got to be more diverse, or even like this idea of wokeness, where it's like, oh snap, now we've got to be woke. And it's like, why the church is always like playing second fiddle when we should be like leading the forefront. And it's the same idea with this mental health thing. It's like we've heard people in the world talking about mental health, and now the church is. And that's no shot at anybody, because I think the sermon series we were going through, we were talking about the armor of God, and we got to the helmet of salvation. So it was very applicable. It was very applicable in the situation. And then what ended up happening was our brother Sandy was able to grace us on the stage and preach a word. Let me see if I remember what it was called. It says, "When life doesn't make sense." And you kind of piggybacked off of this idea of talking on mental health. How was that, preparing for that sermon and addressing such a heavy topic? How was that?
Oh yeah, I mean, well, the sermon was a public proclamation of what had been happening in our marriage, right? In the sense that like something that my wife and I had gone through, or still, right? I don't want to speak as we've passed,
right?
And it's kind of been like a kind of like our family verse for my wife and I, right? So it's 2 Corinthians 4. I think it's 15 through 17. It's in that ballpark. But it says, "For these light momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal weight of glory that far exceeds them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. And so I was really wrestling with this idea, and still to this day, I mean, right, like we preach a sermon like we got it in our spirit, right? But the reality is that's a lot of times only the beginning workings out of what the scripture, of what that word has for us, and also to what the Lord may bring into our life once we preach it. Okay, let me be
oh man, no doubt, yeah.
But I think the Lord had been preparing that, but preparing me in that as my wife has wrestles with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and kind of what they would call, and again, a lot of people think it's like, man, you gotta change, it's about organization, and those are some of the manifestations of people, but a lot of it is these kind of intrusive thoughts that get stuck, and people have a hard time filtering those things out, and so they really, it's like it overtakes them, and they come to think that's who they are, that they've done something, or that like, have you ever, I mean, just for an example, and I might have mentioned this in the sermon, but have you ever been in a room and you're like, man, what if I just yell out a curse word right now? Or if you're like in a big auditorium, have you like,
yeah no doubt,
I mean, maybe not, or if you've been on a bridge, you're like, what if I just jumped right now, like,
right? No, yeah, without a doubt.
I mean,
yeah.
I know I have, right? And so to think about that thought, and you're like, well, that would be a suicidal jump, or like that would just be, why would I yell like the F word out in this like auditorium or at church, right? That would be like really like messed up, right?
Right.
But then you kind of like, that's crazy. I don't know why I thought that. And then,
crap.
Yeah.
I just wanted to try it.
Yeah. No, it wasn't even that cool because it wasn't really a curse word.
Well, we had Pat on here, and I think I met her curse quota.
Oh, really?
So okay. Shout out to Pat.
Yeah.
Thanks,
but keeping it real, I appreciate that. But so with some of the OCD, let's just say, that's kind of a silly thing to think about. But for them, they may think, oh my gosh, the fact that I had a thought about jumping off a bridge means that I'm suicidal, and because I'm suicidal, I don't want to live, and like I hate life, and so they sort of think, I probably, like next time I see a bridge, I'm going to jump off. And so the thought just kind of continues to simmer, and they can't filter it out. It just gets stuck. And so they think on it, and then they're like, I mean, and that's just a small example, but you could play this out in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
And so this is an area that my wife has really been, has wrestled with, and it led her to her having to step away from her job, and really in our first year of marriage being in a spot where she was going through some really tough spots, and but the Lord used that, right? So but going back to the verse, like, man, how do we see something as light as momentary? When you're in the middle of it, it feels like anything but light. It feels very, very weighty, very heavy, and you don't see an end to it.
Yeah.
And you're like, Lord, what are you achieving through this? I mean, like, yes, we're supposed to, glory in our sufferings because of what it produces, or consider it pure joy, right? James says, but it's like, when you're going through it, these are really
realistically
things to like preach to yourself, but God is still using that. But so let me just kind of go full circle with the sermon prep. It really had been something we've been wrestling for 2 years, that had brought us to a place that there was a verse that I think kind of encapsulated, and my wife was cool with me being able to share some of that, because I do think God got a lot, and has gotten glory out of what has happened. But we have to preach to ourselves daily the truths that we don't feel and or believe are playing out, right? Like, we don't think anything, it's hard to feel or see that there's anything being achieved by
all the pain and suffering
what Paul is saying is light momentary difficulties, or light momentary trials. Because for Deanna, like, this is at points a life or death thing, and therefore for me it becomes that too.
Right.
But I do believe that God has brought that as a part of our testimony, and so, but let's be honest. I mean, the cool part is, as we've shared, I mean, I can only begin to share some of the feedback that I got from even just being able to share that in the sermon, of people being able to say, I mean, that we've experienced that. I'm going through that. I didn't know the name to that, or and so it's like, man, like, we're gonna and I think this is one of the Satan's greatest ploys, is to keep these things under wraps, right?
Keep us quiet. But
even this morning, I was telling Deanna, and one of you guys who are more spiritual than I am can tell me where it is. And it's in one of the Corinthian letters to the Church of Corinth. I don't know if it's first or second, where it's like, none of these sins or these struggles are uncommon to man. So I don't care how lewd or crazy a thought is, or like how messy we feel our mind. Like, somebody's been there, or is gonna be there. Right. 2 Corinthians talks about, like, we go through these so we can comfort others. Right. Like, goes on to say, when we were in Asia, we were beyond our ability to endure. We thought, like, death itself was actually better than this. Okay, well, part of that, I guarantee you, had to be mental. So like the fact that you're feeling like you'd rather not live than to deal with this, that's normal. Like that, like
right.
people have dealt with that. Like let's not get caught up in thinking that, and that's why the helmet of salvation the helmet is so important, because the darts that are the fiery darts are, you're the only one ever thought this. You're crazy. You're demented. You're depraved. God cannot help this. Like if you share this, the church will turn its back on you.
Yeah,
crazy. And man, fighting that. That's like,
a fact.
The church has got to be on the forefront of that.
No, I definitely appreciate that, because it highlighted two big things. Is this idea of mental health, and that how prevalent it is, not just out in the world, but in the church. And it is something that needs to be talked about, because again, like you said, you're talking about OCD. My wife got me into like Monk. I don't know if you guys talk about white shows. You ever watch Monk?
No. Like I put it back. I am familiar.
No, but Monk, he's like this detective who had like OCD, and he would like just be touching stuff. And so that's all you like know of OCD, where just people just have like these nervous tics and stuff like that. Yeah. But not realizing that OCD, is like a mental thought. It's like, I can't even filter out this thought, which is like really crazy. And just kudos to you for just being there to support your wife.
Yes.
So kudos to that. But I definitely wanted to ask this question, especially all of us here are married. And I was saying earlier how it's not only we've got to be mindful of taking care of ourselves, but even looking out for our spouses, and not just their physical well-being, but again, like their mental well-being, being their rock, being some sort of stability for them. How's that been for you, Nate? Just, looking out and taking care of your wife's wellness.
Yeah. So I struggle with that, man. I often a way that I beat myself up a lot is like I'm not a good leader, because and it's not a bad thing. My wife is very organized. She's has everything set up most of the time. And as far as the structure, she got that junk down packed. Me, not so much. I'm just like, all right, I know I need to do this. Boom, boom, boom. I'm gonna knock it out for myself. But as far as the structure for our whole family, she kind of takes care of that. So with that being said, it's extremely hard for me. Like the rock that I am is totally and completely wrapped up in scripture. That's it. So like, cause I really don't know what to do. I have no idea ever what to do. But when a situation comes along that I don't know anything about, I immediately go to scripture, think about it. How does it apply to this situation? How can I filter it through a mental sifter of kindness, love, and gentleness for my wife to be able to accept? And then I deliver it. And then I say I'm here. Like that is the way that I'm here for my wife as the rock, to try to be a spiritual rock. Because it's like, all right, I know this sucks, because we deal with infertility, her and I. Because I say her and I because when she's hurting, I'm hurting, and half the time I have no idea what to do. So with that, it's just like, hey, babe, I know this is horrible. This really sucks, but this is what God says about you. Because one of the hardest things about infertility is she's a woman. And in her mind, this is what she's supposed to be able to do. I'm supposed to be able to have a child. I can't give you a child. What type of woman am I? And those thoughts get stuck, right? And it's not even so much, and it's not OCD, but those thoughts get stuck because that's where her identity it gets wrapped up in. It's like, I'm a woman. I can't change that. Like I am a woman. I want to change that, but because of that, this is what is expected of me. But because of what I've gone through in my life, I can't, or I feel as if I can't do these things. And every time I try to do these things, it hurts because it seems as if it fails. So long story short, I be the rock for my wife, which is my family, just by pointing her to God constantly and pointing her to what God says about her. It's like, this is what God says about you. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. You're amazing. You're perfect the way you are. And he loves you dearly. And so do I. And that's where my, I guess, stability is nothing else, because like I don't really have anything else to lean on there.
Yeah. And again, just thank y'all for just being so personal and sharing these stories, because that's what I wanted to make sure we touched on and talking about health and, like you said, wellness, because I think that's a better thing to. Yeah. It encompasses all of that, or not with just taking care of our physical health, but our mental health, and us as married men just looking out for our wives as well. That's not just all about us. That we've got to be considerate of them. And just see how in both of your lives where you had to, you know, be there for your wives, even though that's what we're supposed to do. But a lot of times it's like a lot of men aren't there, or just be like, yo, you need to just go somewhere, you know, stop it.
You know what else though? It's more than just that type of mental, because that's a very specific case. But I think everybody, or every man, or every family deals with not just that mentally, but making sure that your spouse knows that they're loved, to make sure that they're cared about, make sure that they know that like they're thought of. You know what I'm saying? That's huge. Like physically being able to say like, hey, you know, I love you, you're beautiful, and showing that in a different way. You know how people have different love languages. You know, I think one of my wife's is like physical touch. I don't really know 100% that either, but I'm just trying to love her the best way I can. And like when I think about full like health, I think about this test that one of my mentors does with me. It's called a SPIES test. It's what is it? Social, physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. And then you have to gauge yourself on each of those. Like if you had to gauge yourself from 0 to 20, where are you at? It just forces you to really think about health wise, where am I at in all these different aspects of my life? So social, interacting with people; physical, my actual physical; emotional, intellectual. That deals with everything. And spiritual, you really have to gauge that for yourself and think like, where am I at and what's keeping me from being in that place where I need to be at? And then from there, you can make the changes that you need to make. So it's like all of those things as a husband, you in some way are being the rock. And it's not just a job just for you. It's a job that you work with your wife and with God to make happen, because she's got to know she can depend on you, and you've got to know you can depend on God. And it's just, that's just like the cyclical thing that gotta happen. But
nah, dope. And it also points to this need for the church and how important the body is, because like you said, you're going through that. Who's going to be there for you? Because that's a heavy burden for you to have to carry on your own. And again, just even though we all go to the same church, we all have the same worldview. I think it gives us a unique perspective where we can speak, and I don't want to necessarily say critically, but can speak hopefully objectively and see, hey, this is areas where the church has potentially dropped the ball. Especially from, because I always think apologetic, I always think how the outside world views, or try to think how they view us, and so I can better communicate with them. Because I think a lot of times people who don't share our worldview, when they look into the church, they view it more as like a courtroom, or like, hey, I come there, I'm just waiting to be judged. When I think the more accurate representation of a church should be that of a hospital, you know. And I think if I'm going to found it in some sort of verse, it would be when Jesus says it's not the healthy that need a doctor, but the sick. And we're all sick. And most of us fail to realize, hey, I'm sick and there's something wrong. And so when people look into the church and they see it, it's full of messed up people, you know, these hypocrites. Yeah, you're right. Because we all need help. This is a hospital. You don't go to the hospital and see the person who's in perfect health and be like, wouldn't you be like, yo, why are you here?
Right.
You wouldn't. Like, it's the people who are sick. And a lot of times, and again, just like it's revealing too much. My wife, and I'm blaming it on my wife, she got me into Grey's Anatomy. So, you know, it's all of her. I don't like the show at all. I just watch it just because of her. But I actually kind of do like it. But I kind of like the show. The show's dope. But you see these people and they come with all these crazy ailments. And it's just like the craziest things in the world. But it's like, if you were to poll the people in the church and see, and I don't want to put nobody out there, but I believe there's somebody in our church who's dealing with cancer, you know, who are dealing with all these afflictions. And it's just like, wow, this is crazy. And not just going based off just physical ailments, but just spiritually. Just broken, just a lot of brokenness that's being dealt with. And the purpose of the church is to help to maintain that wellness. It's not for us to be like, you're sick, get out. You know, it's you're sick, come in, you're invited in. You know, and just trying to have that idea, or that cultivate that environment of, hey, we understand that you're sick, so am I. I need you to come in. And that's also been just a struggle for me as well, because I was telling you guys earlier where a lot of times in church we see this community aspect through acts. the people get saved and you just see they like sharing things and needs.
Right,
and I think hopefully I'm not misusing the text. We always think like, tangible things. Like if someone was in need of something tangible, but I would think just community, just whatever you needed. Hey, you need somebody to talk. I think one of the biggest things we can do for someone is just to listen to them. Oh man, yeah. It's one of the best things that we can just do is just have someone who just listen to me, just, hey, no judgment, just listen to what's going on, because like you said, just having these crazy random thoughts, it's real. I asked you guys earlier, because this is something personally that I'm going through, is, you're in real estate, you do, physical therapy. I said, who do you guys have? Do you guys have someone you can go to and not necessarily be a mentor, but someone who you can pick their brain and say, hey, I need some advice. I need, some direction. And each of you said, yeah. And I said, I don't have that. So I'm a biblical studies major, got my master, my MDiv, working on what's called a THM. So it's more of a scholarly degree, but it's another master's. Yeah. I literally have my oral defense tomorrow. Have no clue what to expect, what's going to happen. And I have no one who I can go to and say, hey, what should I expect? What's going on? And my thesis is at 150 pages, like 130 content. And it's like, I have no one who I can say, hey, can you review this? Can you look this over? What is that? So it feels like this sense of just going through things alone, just very isolated. And I think because of that, I've put unrealistic expectations on people. For instance, our pastor, and I want to make sure I tell him this to his face as well, where it's like, I felt like I've put an unrealistic expectation on my pastor because he's the only one who I've seen do what I'm doing. And it's not even what I want to do, because I don't want to be a pastor, but he has, a level of theological acumen. And so we can have conversations and it's not going over his head, and things like that. But it's still, I don't have that person whom I can go to, and I kind of elevated him having this expectation that we're going to be so buddy because I've never had that. I got saved later in life, and so I had some friends who I grew up with. I wouldn't call it discipleship, but we went through life together, so we learned from each other. So I learned and I grew. But after we went our separate ways, it's just all on my own, all by myself. So all the stuff that I know is just my own reading, my own studying, this, that, and the third. So it kind of just makes you really isolated and somewhat bitter to a sense, because like I did this, it can make you prideful, like I did this all on my own. Or it's like, no, I need other people to help. But I had this expectation, especially when I came to the church, that like me and the pastor would be like so buddy. But it's like, we've got a pretty substantial church, probably 200, 250, maybe even more than that, where he's not just Brandon's pastor. He's pastor to all these other people. So it's like, how can I have this high expectation? And then the crazy thing to it, it's like you don't even recognize your blind spots, because I literally get to see, our pastor maybe for an hour once a week because I do group exegesis. Yeah. And granted, it's in a different type of setting. It's not necessarily a one-on-one thing. We're helping prepare for, the sermon. But how many people can say that? How many people can say, hey, I get to see the pastor at least for an hour a week? Not too many people. Yeah. But in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm expecting more from him. And it's like, it's easy just to feel like closed off, because it's like, who do I have who I can go to? Who do I have? And I think a lot of it attributes to, us being busy. Just running around, just ripping and running, and just so much going on, where it's very unhealthy, because I think the church, we are supposed to be invested in each other's lives. Because if we're going to be honest, a lot of times we cheat each other is just for that moment, beginning and end of service, high and by. Yeah. Now we have community groups, granted, but even with that, it's like, I know those are my community group. There's people who like, I've never seen you before. Right, yeah. Like, man, Rebecca told this story, and I'm sorry to put your business out there, but they were going to this church for like 7 years, and it was a pretty big church, and they were leaving Kentucky to come here, and they met the pastor. I guess they bumped into him, and he was like, hey, is this your first time? Like, had no clue that they were members of the church. And it's so easy to get lost in churches like that, where it's just like, there's no real connection or anything like that. And so I don't know if you guys had anything y'all can relate, but it's just needing to vent and just get that out, because it's like, man, I'm occupying a space because like you guys say, hey, you're doing the podcast, you're doing this. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no clue. I'm just on the fly, just winging it, And so it's just like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what I'm doing. I need help, and a lot of times just feeling isolated, and not wanting it to affect your relationship with your wife and all these other relationships as well. But it's like, man, that's the purpose of the church, but yet realizing, seeing how the church has dropped the ball too. So have you guys, I guess, witnessed that? I guess that'll be my question. Have you guys like witnessed how the church has dropped the ball, or better yet, so either have you seen them drop the ball, or where areas where you've seen the church truly living out what it was intended to do as far as wellness and taking care of people?
I think I've only been a part of 3 churches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Vision, my church back at home, and I think one in NC State just for a little bit. But I don't really feel like I've seen a church fully take care of that. I feel like Vision's headed that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because talking more about people's mental, making sure that we even had didn't Cody do like a workout thing with people? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's like all those things are getting hit one after another. But I feel like overall, like that's what's happening in community groups. So I digress. I feel like it is happening, but it's happening through community group.
Yeah,
it's not like super like it's for everybody to see like, hey, this is everything that we're doing, boom 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 boom. It's more so like in the background. When you get into community, you're being taken care of, and you have a lot of people there that really care about your well-being holistically. And if you put in that work to put yourself in someone's life and bring them into yours, then you will see that full what's what I'm looking for, you will be taken care of fully.
What about you, Sandy?
And that's a big question. I mean the church misses it regularly. I mean, it's just, and I thought even pastors' ability to apologize on behalf of the church, how they've missed it.
That's good.
When it comes to mental health issues, it was a huge step. So I'd say more the church has to address where it's missed before it can start to reconcile and move. And this is not so many ways, because of how we live life, the compartmentalization at the Acts 2 kind of model, while it is something to strive for, it's very challenging. Now, being committed to the apostles' teaching, praying, having meals together, but sharing all things in common. I mean, these are great ideals, and I think that it's like I would want to work towards that, but we've got to. I don't know. I think probably I'm all about taking an honest assessment of where we are, to then be able to move on to and decide where we want to, improve upon. Because the reality is, we can sit here and say, well, we need, there's mental illness within the church, like the areas we got to address, but where are we sending people to? Like, I mean, and I know we gave a list of some places, but I mean, who do we have relationships with that we could send people to? Like, who is our first line of counseling at Vision? We've got to, we got to name, like, the church has done a poor job. Then we've got to actually put some things in place, so that we can, start to work towards having meeting in those needs in tangible ways. So, I don't know, but I mean, no church is perfect. We all know that.
No doubt,
right?
Yeah.
I think we're striving.
No doubt.
And we're submitted to the Word, and we have a biblical polity, with elders and deacons, and it's imperfect for sure, but we're trying to work towards getting better. I think that's the tension we'll live in on this side of eternity.
Yeah. Period. Yeah. We'll never be perfect.
And I appreciate it, because like that was the focus of wanting to have a conversation on health, or better yet, wellness. Because when we talk health, because I know the New Year, this is going to drop December, so I know New Year's is going to come, and everybody's going to, with the same repetition, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get my gym membership, going to do all these things, and it's like by the end of the January, it's like,
I'm done with this.
All of it fails by the side. But I think when we compartmentalize it like that and fail to see, I need to be taking care of myself holistically. Having a holistic view and realizing how necessary it is, especially when you have a family. It's like, I want to be here for my family. Right. I want to be there for them. And it's almost like this idea where, where Noah be like, the flood's coming. Yeah. Everybody's like, And it's like with health, like, I'll take care of myself. I'll go do this. And then when you finally go, because we had this joke too. It's like, when the last time y'all got a checkup? Because my mother's going to watch this. She's going to be like, I'm glad you're talking about health. But I literally have a text where my mother's like, when you get a checkup? I'm a grown man. My mother's asking me. But it's good that she's asking me.
Yeah, that's good.
She knows that, I just put it by. But it's like,
love right there, man.
It's like you get to this point, and I pray to God it doesn't happen, where that the flood comes. And then you're like, dang, all this time I was supposed to be preparing.
Did this, that, the other, yeah.
And then the flood comes. So it's like needing to realize that this is serious. And especially, because that's my biggest challenge too. It's like having the theology, knowing what your body is a temple, right? We just throw that verse out all the time. It's like, do you realize what that means then? That you ought to take care of your body. Right. And we don't do that. And it's like, dang, I need to be mindful, be taking care of this, because I don't think we value health. It's like, yo, you've got 2 working legs.
Man.
We don't realize these things that we just take so much for granted, our health.
Real quick, I will never forget the time I worked out with a guy at Urban Hope. Hope you don't mind, Bahari, if you see this. Bahari Harris, yo. We got done running around the Duke wall. We got back to where we started at. He started praising God with everything. I was like, what? I've never seen this before. He was like, thank you, God, for the activity of my limbs. I can walk. Thank you, Lord. I was like, I've never seen this before, man. Like, it's all right, man. We good. But at the same time, I was like, you know what? That's huge. Yeah. Some people can't. They really can't. Like, they're in a wheelchair for the rest of their life. They cannot move their legs. But we can. And he was just straight. Like, I didn't even think about it until you said that. Like, yo, man. Yeah, that's
so much that
we
take for granted. And like I said, it's going to be that moment where it's going to be like, hey, the doctor's going to come. Hey, such and such. Because, and again, I don't know the statistics, but I think probably the majority of deaths are preventable. Like health disease. I'm sure. I think that's probably number 1 or number 2, just health disease. Heart disease. Heart disease, yeah. Heart, that's what I said, heart disease. Yeah. Where we don't take care of ourselves. Because I think even you mentioned, hey, this is the reason that I wanted to go into physical therapy and just training, because I've seen so many people in my life that haven't taken care of themselves. Right. And it's just like so many of these things are preventable. Yeah. And just disciplining ourselves in these things. But like I said, I think it's not just discipline isn't just simply for taking care of your physical health, but it encompasses all areas of your life, where it's just like, I just need to be disciplined in prayer, disciplined in reading the word, disciplined in actually like living out the gospel and loving people as God has commanded me to love, just being disciplined in those things. So it's like, if my life is that of discipline, it shouldn't be hard to wake up and go to the gym. That should be minor. Because I'm disciplined in all these other things. Like when suffering comes, am I going to be disciplined? Am I going to curse God? Or am I going to be disciplined and be like, hey, this is where I'm going to find my peace. I'm going to find my rest. And I guess that's what I want to close on too. Because like I said, just as Christians, we're just so busy, man. so busy, where it's like, I want to get to a point where it's like the world looks in on us and just sees community. Because I think that's what the world wants. I think that's what social media is. Community, right? That's what we like. Why are people posting pictures? Like, because they want somebody, the likes are going away or something like that, right? Oh, man. We just want this sense of validation. We want people to acknowledge, because we post pictures so that other people can see them. Yeah, so you can see them. Need each other as much as like I love being to myself. I need people. We need this community. And the church, again, should be at the forefront of community. Like, we see people where not that everybody's, perfect, doing good. No, we got our issues. That's like one of the biggest misconceptions. Just because we're Christians, like, we're not going to clash. We're still humans. We're still going to clash. But how do we deal with these things? How do we handle it? And that's the big thing. And so this idea and this concept of rest, I want to leave you guys with, where it's just like, we're all so busy. Like, even my mind is just racing, man, I got this oral defense. I got all this going on. Like, what are these professors going to say? What are they going to ask me? And God's just like, just rest. Just rest. And I think just even on a practical sense, like how important rest is, because, God rests on the 7th day, and like, why did God rest? He did it for you to realize that you're not God. Do you realize, like, when we go to sleep, the earth still moves? Yeah. Everything still goes. Like, nothing is dependent on us. It's all dependent on God. So he allows us to rest just by his grace. And even if we I've seen people who like try to do these like video game challenges and just how long can you play, where it like has drastic effects on your health and could even cause death.
Yep.
That you were designed to rest.
Yeah.
Like even nature, like with hibernation, like they're designed purposely for rest, and God is reminding you're not me. Because there's even a part where, you know, Jesus says, you know, I'm the Lord of the Sabbath. So he's pointing to like, I don't rest, but you do rest. The Sabbath was supposed to be a benefit for you,
right?
For you to rest. And so we just think of it like in a physical sense, but no, it has mental, spiritual applications too. Whoa. Where it just, rest. You know, find this peace, find this solace, where it's just like that's where you know, where it talks about, you know, getting to the promised land, finding this rest, this Sabbath that, you know, everything is good, because our minds are just going a mile. Just I got this to do, I got that to do, I got this to do. Where it's like it's hard for me to even just sit and relax and be like, man, I came here 3 years ago to go to school and move my family here, not knowing what was going to happen. Try to get a house, fell through. Like, man, is this a sign that we shouldn't be here? All these things. Man, you know, there was a time where I didn't even go to school because financial aid. So all these things is like, and now I'm getting to the point where it's like, I'm at the end, and I have no clue what's gonna happen. And it's like, I worked hard, I did that, just trusting that, but even at the same time, just doubting, did I work hard enough?
Right, yeah.
You know, did I learn enough? And it's just like all these thoughts, and it's just like, God's just saying, just rest.
Yeah, man.
Just rest. And I think a lot of us, you know, we've got so much going on, and we just don't have time to just rest and reflect. And just to, like you said, thank God. Hey, I got my legs.
Yeah.
You know, I've got you know, so much to be grateful for, and just to find that rest. So again, talking about this idea of health and wellness, not just viewing it from a physical standpoint, looking at you guys, just how disciplined you are, but realizing that discipline affects all aspects of our lives, and that's the purpose of the church. It's not to be this courtroom. Yeah. When you come in and it's just like judgment. It's no, like, this is a hospital. We already know you coming in sick.
Right.
We already know.
Everybody is saying
we already know you're coming in sick. So it's like, you know, this is the place where you get well, and we have the ultimate physician in Jesus. So I didn't know if you guys had anything else you wanted to add before we close, but I definitely appreciate you guys coming through, man.
Appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, and let's be honest, this is coming out in December, so, you know, of course that means that New Year's resolutions are around the corner.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we all have some. But I think that we'd be remiss if we didn't say at this moment, our man right here has got a great personal training service.
Oh, please plug.
And 110. Yes. Right now, you can get in for this year in 2019 at a good deal before things jump in 2020. So I'll go ahead and hop on with my man right here, Nate. Nate, how should they get up with you?
Do you have a website or anything?
So I don't have a website, but it's in the making. You could just get in touch with me. To my number, 919-594-0284. That's how I'm working through things right now. Schedule soon to come, website soon to come. So
absolutely, thank you for bringing that up, because I definitely wanted to make this a place to, you know, support other people and let the others know about what's going on. So thank you for that, Sandy, because definitely, man, clearly this guy takes care of himself. So you're in good hands.
110 right there.
In good hands.
If you're with any other personal training in 2020, that is literally on you.
Hey,
we're gonna lift up prayers for you.
But I appreciate you guys so much coming through and just having the conversation.
I appreciate you putting this on, man. Again, not worrying about the views, because maybe you're getting tons you don't even know, but regardless, you're being faithful to what God has called you to do. And man, mad ups on that. Like, putting all this, like, this would only happen on a regular basis with continuity and sustainability if it was a calling, and I know it is. So continue, sir.
I appreciate that. You got again, you can subscribe, iTunes, Spotify, videos on YouTube. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening. But right now, we are out. Peace.
Yo, my world don't stop when the beats commence. Said I'm climbing up this ladder just to get over this fence and run far, far away from the games people play. In this melancholy modern day music, Malay, touche. Pussy cats with lives to spare that kick, you know, in your heart, nice as hell. Yeah, be aware, beware. I hate to see you less a liver or worse. Polar bear, winter time, catch the river. Now that's cold. And